are way above average. We're on to them. We're on to this gangster government.
Wow, gangster government. Yeah, it's tough out there. Welcome back to Hardball. That was Minnesota Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann. I think we made her here at a Tea Party tax rally in D.C. today. She says they're smarter, the Tea Party folk. And a new poll tells us a lot more about them. It was in the New York Times today. We're going to talk about throughout the program tonight. What do they want? Ryan Hecker is a national coordinator for today's Tea Party Patriots. He helped put together the contract from America. That's well written. And Colin Hanna is the president of Let Freedom Ring. Let me go right now. Let me, both of you gentlemen, look at the latest poll we just got from the New York Times. It asked people in the Tea Party movement, how do you usually vote? And the numbers are pretty amazing. They almost always vote Republican, according to this. Always Republican 18, usually Republican 48. That comes well into, that's about 2/3. And then you got about 5% that vote either occasionally or always Democrat. The numbers are overwhelmingly Republican. What is the difference? Let me go to Colin Hanna. What's the difference between a Republican and a Tea Party person? What's the difference? A
Tea Party person is really operating from principles, from a constitutional framework, and is perhaps incidentally Republican, Chris, but doesn't necessarily subscribe to the party, contribute to the party, wear elephant ties and things like that. But their behavior is similar because they're both, I think, rooted in the same set of America's founding principles.
Well, let me go to Ryan Hecker on that. Ryan, why do you need a separate party if you've got the Republican Party if your philosophy is the same?
I think first of all, there are a lot of independents, a very high percentage of independents involved as well. And I would say that, you know, we represent a limited government group of people that support the Constitution and believe in good governance and transparency, which I think is an overwhelming majority of Americans.
But aren't you guys with John Boehner and Mitch McConnell and the Republican leadership? What are your problems with them?
I mean, I think the problems of the movement as a whole are, I mean, I don't think it's against any one politician or one elected official. I think it was just a general sense that that back in October they were no longer representing necessarily the proxy of what people felt ideologically on the economic conservative front.
Parties, Chris, are primarily about winning elections and accumulating power. The Tea Party is a different kind of party. It's about principles.
Well, what principle leads your party to have only 2/5, or less than a majority of your party people believe that President Barack Obama was born in the U.S.? 3/5 aren't willing to say he's an American. What is this ethnic thing going on in the Tea Party movement? The 3/5 of your people won't simply say, hey, he's one of us, he's an American. I disagree with him on tax policy. I may disagree with him dramatically on health care, but he's one of us. Why did 3/5 of your members say, I'm not willing to say he's an American? What's the problem? You first, Colin.
Well, I don't have a problem like that, and I don't think most of them do either. I think the issue...
They do.
You know,
they just polled them.
No, Chris.
They just polled your guys.
Listen to me, Chris. The point is that President Obama and those supporters around him have not answered perfectly simple and straightforward questions that would have put this to rest long ago. Where is the proper documentation?
Okay, you're one of the birthers then. You're one of the people...
I'm absolutely not a birther, Chris, but the point is that the supporters of President Obama have failed to answer in clear, simple terms.
What is it you want besides...
It feeds it.
Okay, this is where we start, and this is where it gets crazy with a lot of your people. And I'm going to go to Ryan on this. This is where it gets wacky. When you were born, was there an announcement in the newspaper that you were born? I don't think there was for me. We weren't that prominent. But apparently for Barack Obama, they've gotten a newspaper back in Hawaii when he was born announcing his birth. There is a document that they make available in Hawaii. You get it from the government. It says you were born there, at what time and at what hospital, all that stuff. What more do you want than a newspaper announcement at the time you're born that you were born there? What more documentation would anybody want? Ryan.
I personally don't prescribe to the whole birther movement. I think that if you look at the polls, over 48% of Americans identify themselves with Tea Parties, while only 44% or 42% with Barack Obama. So I would question that there is a lack of trust there in the American people generally for him. Now, if a certain percentage,
three-fifths Okay, are you one of the birthers? Because 3/5 of the Tea Party people, 3/5 of the Tea Party people are not willing to simply say, okay, he's another American like me. So why is that the case, Ryan?
I am not a birther.
Why are 3/5 of your numbers around you?
Chris, you're trying to marginalize a grassroots
Marginalize? I think you are marginalized. Why are so many of you birthers?
Not I, and
I am not a birther, and I don't think that this movement is about that. This movement is about economic conservative and big government, small government conservatism. And so, I mean, you're speaking to a certain percentage in one poll, and I don't think that one poll reflects anything.
Okay, according to the New York Times, 24%. A significant higher number than the rest of the country believes that violence is sometimes appropriate when used against our own elected government. I want Ryan to answer why would anybody say that it's okay to use violence against the government?
Look, I don't believe in a democracy like this that we need to engage in violence. I would think that, back during the revolutionary time period, we did engage in violence to overturn a colonial authority, but I would not say that we should support violence now by any stretch of the imagination.
Do you know anybody in the movement who does?
No.
No, I know absolutely no one in the movement that would ever say that they support violent action against the government. I'm sorry, I think that's a very extreme position.
Okay, let's talk about Turkey and the economic issues. I know you want to reduce the amount of government in our lives. So here's the question. The music's pretty loud behind you. Let me go to Colin. A lot of people are retired benefit because they kicked into it, Social Security and Medicare. They're the most expensive programs alongside interest on the national debt and the federal military. These are expensive programs. They're entitlement programs, they're called. They're forced insurance. You're forced to buy, you have to pay a payroll tax when you go to work. Your employer has to pay it. It's forced insurance against the possibility that when you're old, you won't have money to provide for yourself or your health care. Why are people in your movement so against what they call forced insurance? They call this new health care bill forced insurance, when under the law, you can go to jail for not paying your payroll tax, not kicking into Social Security and Medicare, and yet overwhelmingly, according to the New York Times poll, Tea Party people believe in Medicare, they believe in Social Security, and they believe that they're good deals for the country, they're good economics. So if you believe in Social Security, you believe in Medicare, why is health care a different kettle of fish?
Because it involves the forced or mandated purchase of a consumer product, something that goes far beyond any constitutional power, Chris. This is not the same as a tax. The mandate is the principal objection from a constitutional ground to what's been proposed by the Obama administration, what's now been passed, and I think that it suffers some real constitutional vulnerability.
Okay. But if the government ran the health care program, instead of having it run through private insurance companies, then it would be just like Medicare and Social Security. It would be a tax that which would give you benefits in response. So would that be okay constitutionally if it was a government program? By your lights, it would be, because Medicare and Social Security are. Those are taxes that you have to pay under the law, and then you get benefits from. So if this health care plan were a single-payer system, then you would say it'd be okay.
No, I'm saying that a single-payer system would avoid that particular constitutional problem. But you add all of these things up together and you project them out into the future, and you're in a situation where you're not only going to have federal debt exceeding the annual gross domestic product of the country, but you're going to have a federal deficit that is unprecedented. You're going to have federal spending well north of 25% of the total GDP, and those things become simply a bridge too far. They become financially unsustainable, Chris.
That's a good argument. That's a good argument. I like that argument. And were you making that kind of an argument, sir, under President Bush when he doubled the national debt?
Actually, yes.
Well, we didn't hear you.
We
didn't see any protests like today in Washington. You guys, I'm sorry, let's go to Ryan. You're out in the streets there with me, all these people. Why weren't you there when Bush was here doubling the national debt, not vetoing a single spending bill for 8 years, taking us to Iraq? By the way, I don't think a lot of libertarians thought Iraq was a great national enterprise, by the way. I'll bet a lot of people behind you think it was the stupidest war we ever fought. But that's just my thinking. What do you think? Where were you guys when Bush was here?